You decide to set foot on the long road of learning English. Therefore, you are considered an English student now. I have prepared a set of useful studying and exams phrasal verbs that you can learn to level up your English knowledge. Let's get into it. Number 1. To keep up with. As a normal part of student life, we are always dealing with exams. Therefore, in order to pass the exam successfully, what should you do? Should I take it easy now and leave everything to night of exam? Or perhaps you should keep up with your studies? To keep up with something means to continue doing something. In this case, keeping up with your studies means studying during the semester and not keeping everything for the last night before the exam. As long as you keep up with your studies, you will have less to read the night before the exam. So you can sleep day and night. That is the first phrasal verb about studying and the exam. Number 2. To brush up on. In this time, you have studied really hard and you are ready to nail the exam. But since there may be some small slippery details, you need to brush up on the topics that you might have forgotten. To brush up on something means to review and to learn something that you have studied in the past and you might have forgotten now. For example, maybe a few years or few months ago, you learned something, English tense or English vocabulary, and now you remember some of them and have forgotten the rest. In this case, what you have to do is to brush up on the vocabulary that you had learned before. It means you review them so that you learn them completely again. Notice that this phrasal verbs about studying and exam has two particles, up and on. Number 3. Something comes up in the exam. Have you ever asked yourself why we bother to keep up with our study and brush up on the thing that we have learned? The answer is crystal clear. It's because they might comes up in the exam. And who does not like to be the best student in the class and get a perfect? But do you know what this studying and exam phrasal verbs means? Let me explain. If a question or subject comes up in the exam, it means they are asked in the exam and you have to answer them. For example, number 1, I spent weeks to study the most difficult part of the book, but it didn't come up the exam. Number 2, don't forget to brush up on all the side notes. They may come up in the exam. Do you think I should study the footnotes? I don't think they will come up in the exam tomorrow. Number 4, to mug off on something. As there are good and bad in the world, there are hardworking and lazy students in a class. But do you know how lazy students manage to pass the exam? Lazy students don't like to spend time studying a difficult subject, so they usually mug up on the key points. Now, here is another brilliant phrasal verb that you can use to talk about studying and exam. But how? Let me explain. To mug up on something means to try learn the main point of a subject quickly, usually the night before the exam. Imagine that I have a book and it's 1000 pages, and since I don't have time, tomorrow is big test, I just read the first page of the every chapter. In this way, I only mug up on the key point that may come up in the exam. Number 5, to scrub through. Another characteristic is lazy student is that they don't care about the grade they get. They just want to pass the exam and get over it. So they scrub through. Scrub through means to succeed at doing something but barely. It means to pass the test but with the lowest mark. So Imagine on a scale of 30, the lowest passing marks is 18 and you get 8. In this case, you pass the exam, but since your mark is the lowest possible, you just scrub through.